Hello, Sinister Ones, and welcome to Twisted Stories with Phantom876. Today we will be reading a story from Yugen8206 from the No Sleep subreddit. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. When I woke up, I only recognized the growing sense of thirst from within my dehydrated body. I licked my parched lips and slipped out of my covers, my body suddenly hit by the cold air stitched into the seams of oppressive darkness ahead. I quivered as I reluctantly embraced the chill temperature and made my way to the door, jumping with each step as small creaks were produced from the weight of my foot being placed upon the oak floorboards. Although the noise was faint, it sounded deafeningly loud in contrast to the dead silence surrounding my petite self. All five of my fingers curled around the bronze-colored doorknob ahead, and they steadily turned it until a small click was heard. I then placed my tiny hand against the wooden door coated in a fine layer of white paint, and with a gentle push, the barrier between the safe haven of a child's bedroom and whatever lay beyond was removed. I shivered as a new draft of icy air entered the room. A brand new wave of darkness seemed to have rushed through the doorway and engulfed the area, its color resembling that of tar. Summoning all the courage I could, I placed both feet firmly on the carpet that embellished the ground. My eyes glared at the corridor before me. It appeared lengthier at night than during the day. I could imagine elongated arms melting from the walls on both sides, grasping my clothing. I could envision dozens of spiders dropping from the ceiling, several landing on my hair and others crawling on the surface of my body. Shaking my head, I banished such thought and proceeded down the hallway. The hair on the back of my neck stood up as I walked past the room where my parents soundly rested in their comfortable bed. There was no turning back, and even if I wanted to, my craving for a drink to sedate my ever-growing dehydration only grew. I carried on, still finally reaching the end of the endless path. I found myself in a clearing. By then my eyes had grown somewhat accustomed to the dark, and I could make out a few pieces of furniture and a television set. I slowed my pace and gulped nervously, and a sense of peril entered the room. I found that shadows would dance in the corners of my eyes, only to disappear once I turned my head in their direction. The darkness seemed even more foreboding than it had just seconds earlier. I desperately wished to run to my parents like I had so many times before. Still, I remembered how they would always tell me that there was nothing to be afraid of. They explained numerous of times that my young imagination would always come up with ways to scare me. But I had to learn that to be brave and to overcome those fears I would often encounter at the hands of my own mind. Thus, my mind was set on proving my mother and father that I wasn't afraid anymore, so I carried on. I confidently walked forward, repeating what my parents had said in my thoughts with each stride. After taking a few steps, I heard it. From behind me, I could only make out the sound of footsteps, the rhythm conflicting with my own. As I stopped, so did they. My heart begun to beat faster than it had before. Had it been my mind playing tricks on me again? I resumed my steady pace, and this time the only footsteps I could hear were my own. As I neared the kitchen, I found myself standing completely still once more. Fingers and shapes yet again found themselves located in the corner of my eye. I attempted to take a few deep breaths in order to calm down. It was just my imagination, right? I turned and tried my hardest to assure myself of that, but somewhere in the back of my mind I doubted it. And that growing sense of fear showed as I walked even faster. I kept my eyes focused ahead, not daring to look behind me for even a second. The offbeat footsteps returned once again, and I responded by going even faster. I felt the wind start to pick up and brush my face as I realized how quickly I was moving. I was certain that my imagination was causing me to hear footsteps on my trail and the forms appearing in the corner of my eyes. I was aware that my imagination was the reason behind my deepest, darkest fears, which were beginning to make their presence known within my soul. I knew for a fact that only my imagination could make my heart beat the way it did, and soak my palms in a thin layer of sweat. My parents would never lie to me, would they? Regardless of what I knew to be true or not, I was close to arriving to my best destination. I began a full sprint as I felt the darkness clutching at my ankles and arms. I could hear the footsteps aimlessly walk around, and more illusions and figures accompanied them. I had one hell of an imagination, and I had one thought racing through my mind. I needed to find a light switch. I was desperate for a light that would illuminate my surroundings, driving the treacherous night and whatever creatures lived within it. Their sole purpose to capture me and munch on my bones back. I was so close, just a few feet away. I leaped forward and pushed a small lever. upwards, soaking me in the area of warm and much appreciated glow. I sighed deeply, relieved to be out of the danger at last. However, before I could even move, my heart stopped and my eyes widened. Behind me, I heard a voice, most unfamiliar. It was rough, brutal, and moist, and it echoed throughout the entire house. Finally, I can see you. I flicked off the lights before letting out a shrill cry. I dashed through the darkness through the living room, the hallway, and all the way to my parents' room. Though I can't be certain, I swear I could hear the faint sound of a child giggling from behind me. My parents were frustrated that I had woken them, but I didn't care in the slightest. I clung to my mother, sobbing into her chest. My father didn't find anything in the house. He searched every nook and cranny of the place, only to confirm that his suspicions that we were the only souls occupant here. My parents would let me sleep with them. That night, I knew no matter what I said, they would simply chalk my experience up to being consequences or hyperactive mind or my mind. But I knew something was with me. I knew beyond a doubt that the breathing I felt on the back of my neck, that deep, perverted voice was real. Looking back, I feel almost silly that I was afraid of the dark. We were never afraid of the dark. Rather, it was what was in the dark that petrified us to our core. It was the knowledge that the only thing separating us from potentially cruel, twisted fate was the thin, vile darkness surrounding us.